Hey everyone, welcome in. You know what time it is, right? Time to get our detective hats on. We're diving into the Maura Murray case, and let me tell you, this one's a real head scratcher.
Absolutely. This case has it all. Twists, turns, dead ends, you name it. It's the kind of mystery that keeps you up at night.
It's true. And you guys sent in a ton of stuff for this one. Articles, news clips, even some wild YouTube theories, which, by the way, we love. So get ready because we're about to dissect it all.
We're talking about separating fact from fiction, really digging deep into the evidence, or in some cases, the lack of it.
Right. It's all about trying to make sense of the senseless, Because with Maura Murray, nothing is as it seems. So picture this. February 2004, a freezing cold night in New Hampshire. Maura Murray, a young nursing student, is driving through this desolate stretch of road when, boom, car crash.
And not just any car crash, right? There are so many strange details surrounding this accident, details that just don't add up.
Totally. Her car, this beat-up Saturn, is found abandoned in a snowbank. Now, a local bus driver, Butch Atwood, happens to come across the scene, sees Maura, and stops to help.
And you would think that in that situation, she'd be relieved, grateful for the help.
Exactly, but that's not what happens at all. Maura waves him off, tells him she's already called for help, and then, poof, she's gone.
Gone, vanished, without a trace. And to make things even more suspicious, there's no record of her ever making that call for help. Not to the police, not to a tow truck, no one.
Okay, see, this is what I mean about things not adding up. And hold on, it gets even weirder. Remember that rag they found stuffed in the tailpipe of her car?
Oh yeah, that's always been a point of contention in this case. I mean, was it really just a precaution to prevent the car from stalling in the cold like her father claimed?
Right. It just seems a little too convenient, don't you think? Like maybe someone was trying to make it look like a breakdown.
It definitely adds another layer to this whole mystery, and it wouldn't be the last. Even before that night, there were signs that something was off with Maura.
Yeah, like how her supervisor at UMass, Karen Mayotte, said she seemed withdrawn in the days leading up to her disappearance. Almost like she was carrying a secret or something.
Exactly. So like a change in behavior that in hindsight becomes this really significant clue. Like, was she scared? Was she trying to tell someone something was wrong?
It's chilling when you think about it like that. And then, of course, there's her boyfriend at the time, Bill Rausch.
Or the long-distance boyfriend stationed at an army base in Oklahoma.
Some people say they were madly in love, talking marriage, the whole 9 yards, while others described their relationship as rocky, even toxic at times.
Yeah, and that's where things get really interesting because understanding the dynamics of their relationship, the good, the bad, the ugly, it's crucial to understanding Moore's state of mind in those final days.
Totally. And speaking of those final days, we gotta talk about this mysterious trip to New Hampshire in the first place.
Because it's not every day that a young nursing student suddenly decides to drop everything and take a spontaneous road trip to a completely different state. Right.
Right. She told everyone she was taking time off for a family emergency, but that turned out to be a lie. So what was she really doing in New Hampshire?
Well, one theory that's been floating around is that it had something to do with a speeding ticket she got a while back.
Yeah.
Apparently, she had paid the fine, but forgot about some reinstatement fee.
Oh, like one of those annoying things where you have to pay in person?
Exactly. And get this, the only place you can pay it in person was New Hampshire.
Seriously? Are you kidding me? That's crazy.
I know, right? But here's the thing. We still don't know for sure if that's the real reason she went to New Hampshire.
It's like every answer leads to more questions.
It's true. And you know what else is super strange? The phone calls she made right before she vanished. Remember, this is way before everyone had cell phones, so those calls were crucial.
Totally. And they weren't just random calls either, like that one she made to a condo complex in Bartlett, New Hampshire.
Oh, yeah, that one's a doozy. Talk about a random phone call.
Right. No connection to the place, no reason to call. So what was that all about?
It's like she was trying to send a message. But to who?
So that phone call to the condo complex? Yeah, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
It's like every time you think you're getting close to some kind of answer in this case, another curveball comes flying at you.
Tell me about it. And speaking of curveballs, let's talk about that witness who claims to have seen Maura miles away from her car that night.
Oh, you mean the contractor? Yeah, that's a detail that's always thrown me for a loop. I mean, if he's telling the truth, and he swears he is, then what was Maura doing all the way out there?
Right. It's not like it was a nice night for a stroll.
Exactly. It was freezing, snowy, the middle of nowhere. And according to him, she was running, like really running, as if she was scared or trying to get away from something.
Okay, see, now that sounds like something straight out of a horror movie.
It does, doesn't it? But we also have to consider that it's been years since that night, and memories can get fuzzy. Plus, with all the media attention and speculation surrounding this case, it's easy for people to get their stories mixed up.
True, true. But still, it makes you wonder, what if he's right? What if something happened to Maura after that accident? What if she didn't just wander off into the woods?
Well, and that's where the A-frame house comes in, right?
Ah, yes, the infamous A-frame house. It's practically become a character in this whole saga. For those who haven't fallen down the rabbit hole as far as we have, what's the deal with this house? Why is it such a big deal?
Okay, so picture this. It's this creepy, rundown house, kind of hidden away in the woods, not too far from where Maura's car was found. Now, you would think that in those crucial hours and days after she disappeared, the police would have thoroughly searched that house.
Well, yeah. It seems like a no-brainer.
You would think. But for some reason they didn't, at least not right away.
Really? Why not?
It seems like at first they were more focused on the possibility of Maura wandering off into the woods or maybe even trying to stage her own disappearance. They were thinking maybe exposure or maybe she just took off, wanted to start a new life.
So they weren't really considering foul play at that point.
Not as much, no. It wasn't until much later, after weeks had gone by and there was still no sign of her, that they really started looking at other possibilities.
And by that point, the A-frame house was kind of old news.
Pretty much. But of course, by then, all sorts of rumors and speculation about the house had already started swirling around.
Oh, I bet. Small towns and mysteries. It's a recipe for juicy gossip. So, what were people saying?
Well, there was the guy who lived there at the time, Rick Forcier. Apparently, he'd been acting kind of strange, changing his story about his whereabouts on the night Maura disappeared, that sort of thing.
Always a red flag, right?
Yep.
Never trust a guy who can't keep his story straight.
Exactly. And then there were whispers that maybe he'd confided in someone, told them he'd seen a young woman running on the road that night, a woman who matched Maura's description.
Okay, hold up. Now that's something, and it kind of lines up with what that contractor said he saw, right?
Right. So even if these were just rumors, they were starting to paint a very unsettling picture.
And I'm guessing Maura's family caught wind of these rumors.
Oh, absolutely. Her father, Fred Murray, has been a tireless advocate for her case from day one. He's the one who really pushed for the A-frame house to be searched more thoroughly.
And that's when they brought in the cadaver dogs, right?
Exactly. And this is where things get even more interesting, because those dogs, they hit on something. Big time.
No way. You mean in the A-frame house?
Yep. In the basement, to be precise. They went absolutely nuts down there, especially around one particular area of the concrete floor.
Oh, wow. So they're thinking maybe, just maybe, Maura's remains are buried under that concrete.
That was the working theory, yeah. And for years, that's what everyone focused on. That somewhere beneath that concrete floor, they would find the answer to this mystery.
So did they ever actually break up the concrete? Did they ever see what was down there?
They did. But it took years of pressure from Fred Murray, the media, and even online sleuths to get the authorities to finally agree to an excavation.
Years. Seriously. That's crazy. So what happened? Did they find anything?
Well, they dug and dug and dug and came up empty.
You're kidding. Are you serious?
Totally serious. No Maura, no sign of her whatsoever.
Ugh, that's just heartbreaking. All that hope, all that anticipation, and then nothing.
It was a huge letdown for everyone involved, but it wasn't a complete wash. They did find some weird stuff down there.
Weird stuff, like...
We call them anomalies. Basically, just some strange things in the soil, some unusual patterns.
Okay, now you have to elaborate. What kind of anomalies are we talking about? Was it like bones, clothing, a secret tunnel leading to a torture chamber?
Okay, slow down there, Stephen King.
Mm.
It wasn't quite that dramatic, but it was enough to raise eyebrows. They sent the soil samples off for testing, but unfortunately, the results were inconclusive.
Inconclusive. So they still don't know what those anomalies were?
Nope. It's still a mystery to this day. Some people think it was nothing, just old construction debris or something. But others, they're not so sure.
There are always those who believe, right?
Always. And in a case like this, with so many unanswered questions, it's easy to see why.
Totally. But for now, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about Maura's state of mind leading up to that night.
Because as intriguing as all the physical evidence, or lack thereof might be sometimes, the most important clues are hidden in plain sight.
Exactly. We've talked about how her supervisor at work noticed a change in her, how she seemed withdrawn, distracted. Even her boyfriend mentioned something similar, right?
Yeah, and that's a really important detail to remember. Maura was a young woman, a nursing student no less, which means she was dealing with a lot of pressure.
Oh, for sure. Nursing school is no joke. And then add in a long-distance relationship, maybe some family drama we don't know about.
Exactly. It all adds up. And then, of course, there's that other car accident.
Wait, what other car accident?
Yeah, so just a few days before her disappearance, Maura got into a fender bender on campus. Nothing major, but still kind of strange, right?
Okay, yeah. 2 car accidents in less than a week. That's a little too coincidental for my liking.
Right. And apparently, Maura was pretty shaken up after that first accident, more so than you might expect for a minor fender bender.
So maybe those 2 accidents weren't so coincidental after all?
It's a thought, isn't it? Like, what if that first accident was a way to scare her, to throw her off balance?
You're saying like a warning?
Maybe. Or maybe it was a way to tamper with her car without anyone suspecting anything.
Oh, okay, now that's some next level stuff right there. But it would explain a lot, wouldn't it?
It would. It would mean that someone or some group of people was targeting more, and that those seemingly random events leading up to her disappearance weren't so random after all.
It's like we're trying to follow a trail of breadcrumbs, but the birds keep swooping in and scattering them before we can get a good look.
That's one way to put it. And speaking of things that are hard to pin down, we can't forget about the other missing person cases in that same area, around the same time as Maura's disappearance.
Right, it's like Maura's case is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. All these other young women vanishing without a trace, it's enough to give you chills.
It really is eerie. And it's hard not to wonder if there's some connection, if maybe the same person or group of people is responsible for more than one of these disappearances.
So we're talking about the possibility of a serial predator operating in that area.
It's a possibility that can't be ignored, especially when you start looking at the similarities between the cases.
Okay, so humor me. What kind of similarities are we talking about? Give me the rundown.
Well, for starters, you have the age range of the victims, young women, mostly in their late teens or early 20s.
Okay, that tracks. Sadly, that seems to be I don't know, like a target demographic for a lot of these groups, right?
Unfortunately, yes. Then you have the circumstances of their disappearances, often sudden, unexpected, with little to no explanation.
So, like, no obvious signs of a struggle, no ransom demands, no witnesses.
Exactly. It's like they just vanished into thin air. And then there's the fact that in many of these cases, their cars were found abandoned, just like Maura's.
Okay, so someone's out there just ditching cars left and right. That's got to be a clue, right? Like, were they switching cars? Did they have someone pick them up?
Those are all good questions, and unfortunately, we don't have any definitive answers yet.
Ugh, it's frustrating. It's like they were all just erased, wiped away without a trace.
And that's the thing about cases like this. Without any solid leads, without any concrete evidence, it's almost impossible to know where to even begin.
And the families of these women, I mean, it just breaks my heart to think about what they must be going through. The not knowing, the wondering, the constant fear.
It's unimaginable to have someone you love just vanish without a trace, without any explanation. It's a pain that never really goes away.
It's like a wound that never fully heals. And it makes you realize that sometimes, despite our best efforts, despite all the technology and resources we have at our disposal, there are just some mysteries we may never solve.
It's a tough pill to swallow. But you're right. Some cases, they stay with you, haunting you with their unanswered questions.
And the Maura Murray case. Yeah, this is one of those cases. But you know what? Even though we may never have all the answers, we can't give up hope. We can't stop searching for the truth, for justice.
Absolutely. And that's the power of shows like this, right? To keep these stories alive, to keep people talking, keep people searching for answers.
Because someone out there knows something. Maybe they saw something that night, something that seemed insignificant at the time, but could be the missing piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. And even the smallest detail, the smallest memory, could make all the difference in a case like this.
So if you're listening to this right now and anything comes to mind about Maura Murray or any other missing person case, please don't hesitate to reach out to the authorities. You might just hold the key to bringing someone home. And that's what this is all about, right? Bringing light to the darkness, giving voice to the voiceless, and never, ever giving up hope.